You know that feeling when you meet someone and there's just an instant connection? Or when you look out at a forest or the ocean and feel like you're part of something bigger? Well, today we're going to dive deep into that feeling. We're exploring this really profound idea that every single one of us, every living thing, is actually a unique expression of one single universal source. We're going to go on a little journey to understand the soul, figure out where it comes from, and see why its ultimate destination is all about returning to that oneness.
So, here's our roadmap. First, we'll start at the very beginning with the spark of one source. Then, we're going to get into why we feel so separate when we're in a body. After that, we'll tackle the big one, the cycle of rebirth. And finally, we'll look at the most important part, how we remember the way back home.
All right, part one, the spark of one source. And I just love this question. It gets right to the point. What if we're all powered by the exact same energy? To really understand how we're all connected, we've got to start with the power that makes us, well, us. Okay, this quote right here, this is basically the whole idea in a nutshell. It's saying that at our core, we're not just these physical bodies running around. We're a form of energy, a little spark of something divine. And the key thing to get is that this isn't just some nice poetic thought. It's a whole framework for seeing every single living thing as being fundamentally, deeply connected.
So what is this soul, this spark? Well, according to this perspective, it's not some single, solid object. It's way more dynamic than that. Think of it like a swirling bundle of energetic information. All your experiences, your secret desires, your memories, those big aha moments, it's all collected together, and that collection is what animates your body.
And this is such a great way to think about it. You've got one electrical current, right? That same electricity can power a fan, charge your phone, or run a heater. The devices are totally different, doing completely different things, but the energy, it's identical. The idea here is that life is exactly the same. You have this one source, this one energy that animates a tree, an animal, and a human. We're all just different gadgets, different expressions, running on the exact same cosmic power. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. Because if we're all fundamentally connected, all powered by the same source, then what's the deal with feeling so separate all the time? Why does life in a body so often feel isolated and disconnected?
Well, the idea here is that the human experience is just so intense. It's so loud and colorful and all-consuming that our memory of that universal connection gets foggy. It's like a thick mist rolls in. And while we're in here in this body, we build up all these layers of identity, and they can make us completely forget where we came from.
And this is what creates that fog. These things are called attachments. They're all those powerful human emotions and ideas: regret, fear, guilt, even our own strong sense of I am this person. They act like these little anchors, holding our focus so tightly on our own individual story that we start to forget we're part of a much bigger ocean.
Which, of course, leads to a fantastic question. If being human is so confusing and can feel so confining, why on earth would a soul keep coming back for more lifetime after lifetime? And that question right there leads us straight into one of the most ancient concepts for explaining this exact process. Section 3, the cycle of rebirth. Let's talk about the big question. What happens after we die? Because the source material for this has a really fascinating step-by-step take on this whole cycle, what many people call reincarnation.
Now look closely at step 2, because this is a pretty wild idea. When the body dies, the soul doesn't just float off to a cloud. It disintegrates. Remember, it's a collection of energies. So the parts that are at peace, the parts that remember their connection, they go right back to the source. But the unresolved fragments, the pieces still tied to regret or desire or fear, they drift, looking for a way to resolve themselves. And eventually, those pieces clump back together and form a new lifetime.
This whole process, this cycle of death and rebirth, has a name, samsara. And the key takeaway here is that we stay in this cycle not as some kind of punishment, but because parts of our own soul are still trying to finish their business. They're drawn back to Earth to sort out those unfinished desires and finally let go of those heavy attachments.
And that leads us to the final, and maybe the most important part of our journey, remembering the way home. If we're caught in a cycle driven by all these attachments, how do we get out? How do we finally break the cycle and help our soul complete its journey once and for all?
The goal is a state called moksha. It literally means liberation. And it's not about escaping the world because the world is bad. It's about rising above those attachments, healing those fragmented pieces of yourself, and allowing every single part of your soul to finally remember where it came from and merge back into the oneness of the source. It's coming full circle. And just look at the difference here. This shows the evolution of the soul. On the one hand, you have a soul that's driven by attachment. It's kind of pulled back into the cycle, always searching for something outside itself to feel whole. But on the other side, you have a liberated soul. It can actually choose to come back, not because it has to, but because it wants to create and experience things, all while knowing, remembering, that it's a conscious piece of the one source.
So it all comes back to this one idea. The entire point of this huge cosmic journey through maybe countless lifetimes is just to clear away that fog of attachment we talked about earlier. And when we do that, we don't just find some peace and quiet. We remember our true nature. We remember that we aren't just a drop in the ocean. We're the entire ocean in a single drop.
And that leaves us with this final massive question to just sit with. If every single person you meet, your best friend, a stranger on the street, even the person who challenges you the most, if they are all just different expressions of the same one universal energy, how does that change the way you see them? How does it change the way you see yourself? What if, when you really get down to it, there's only one of us here?